Hi everybody, the Home Service Pro here. Today I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot and replace a power head on a zone valve for a boiler. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the zone valve that's given us problems. I'm going to show you back here, there's a lever on the back of the zone valves. That you can see this lever here, and you can see how it comes up that far and it stops right there. It doesn't go any further than that. That tells me that there's no call for heat. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and we're going to turn the thermostat up, and I'll show you that we have a call for heat and what it's doing with the boiler. So we have the thermostat here. I'm going to go ahead and crank this thermostat all the way up to 80 degrees just so I know that it has a good call for heat. Let's go back in and look at that zone valve now. So now if you come back over to this lever I was moving before, you can see that lever, it moves freely all the way over. It comes all the way over here and it stays right there. I'm going to go turn that thermostat back down and you'll actually see that lever come back over on its own. That's another way that I know that it's calling for heat. Okay, I'm turning the thermostat down right now. You should see that lever coming back over here right directly. There it is. And so that tells me that this zone valve, the motor and everything on this zone valve is working properly. It's just not making what's called end switch. The end switch is when that motor comes all the way over, it makes a switch which turns the boiler on. So right now, the only time that this basement zone is heating is when another zone calls for heat. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shut the power off to the boiler. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shut the power off to the boiler. We're going to make sure the power shuts off by, I have my meter here. We're going to go ahead and put this, you can do this on any of the zone valves because all the power comes from the same power source. We're going to go ahead and come up here and we're going to go onto the end terminal here in the back and the end terminal here in the back. And then we're going to go up to the meter and we should have 27 volts. It'll vary in between 24 and 27. So you can see that we do have power there. It's 27.18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to shut the breaker off to the boiler. And we're going to go ahead and recheck that afterwards. So here's our breaker panel. And it shows right here that number 10 is the boiler. And if you look up here at number 10, it does show boiler there. There's numbers down each side of this panel. You want to come down to breaker number 10, which is right here. I don't know if you can see that number or not, but that's a 10. We're going to come over. We're going to go ahead and shut that off. We'll go back into that boiler room and we'll double check to make sure that we lost 24 volts to the system. And if we did, then we know we're shut off and we're not going to short anything out. So we're going to go ahead and just check back on that same zone valve here. Make sure that we have no 24 volts now. So we're going to go on the two end pins in the back. And there we go. And my meter is reading 0 volts. So now we know the power is off to the boiler. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the zone valve and we're going to replace it with a new power head. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pop this cover off and we're going to set it aside. So inside here, you can see that there's a screw right here. And then up over on this other side, there's a screw right back up in here. You got to kind of have a long, skinny screwdriver to get it in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to loosen up those two screws. Loosen up the other screw, same way. Okay, now both of those screws are loose. Now this whole assembly, the whole power head, will pop right off from here and come out right here into your hand. Now we don't have to shut the water off or anything to the boiler because we're still sealed behind that. So we don't have to mess with the water jacket and get into the boiler fluid at all. So now the best way of doing this is, as you can see, there's 5 terminals up here. And all the wires are all black, so sometimes it gets confusing if you try and take all the wires off and try and remember where they go. So what I do is I take one set of wires off at a time. I'm going to kind of prop that up there so it stays facing out toward me like that. This is our new zone valve here. And I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this and take just the power head off. We ended up getting a whole zone valve because I couldn't find just a power head and I couldn't get one in a timely fashion, so I bought a whole power head. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to loosen this screw up. And we're going to loosen this screw back here up the same way as we did on the other one. And then this whole thing will pop right off from there. This is the same as what we have there. So as you can see now we have, this is the power head, this is the power head. These are the same screws. You want to make sure that you have 2 on one side or 2 on the bottom and then 3 on the top. And we got the 3 on the top. And we want to make sure that all the wires go back in the same sequence as what they are on this one. So what I do is I take and I go ahead and loosen up all the screws on the new zone valve, just so I don't have to mess with that in between. Once I get all of these loose, I do one terminal at a time. Okay, so you can see that we have all the wires back on their terminals. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get them there because the wires get tangled up with the other ones as you're trying to hook them up, but in the end result, we got everything all hooked up. We're going to go ahead and remount this power head. So we have this notch here. We got to make sure we get that over top of the spud there. So what we do is we get that lined up on that, get your screws and everything kind of lined up, and then you're going to force this valve open and then just kind of push back on it as it's doing that, wiggle it, and you'll feel it drop right on there. That slid right on. And now all we're going to do is hold that back and tighten up the 2 screws that we loosened up when we took this off. That one's tight. And this one, we got these wires kind of in the way, so it makes it a little bit harder, but and now that one's tight. So now our power head has been replaced. So now we're going to go back over to the breaker panel, and we're going to go ahead and turn that breaker back on, and then we're going to test it. Okay, so we went over to that breaker panel and we turned the power back on. So now we're going to test for 24 volts here. Make sure that we're going to go to that first terminal and the farthest terminal, and we have 27 volts. So now we know we're back on. Also, with this particular boiler, you can tell by looking at the front of it, we got a green light that shows that we have power. When we had the breaker off, that did go out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to turn the thermostat up. We want to make sure that this zone valve, right now you can see that it's back in that same position where it only comes across that far. So we want to make sure that it fully opens with the thermostat and we hear the boiler turn on. And if the boiler turns on, then we know that we've got that zone valve replaced and it's working the way that it should. So let's go turn this thermostat back up. And we're going to go ahead and just crank this thing all the way up again, so we know that we have a good call for heat. Come back in here, and our zone valve should be moved to the open position, and we should be hearing that boiler turn on here shortly. So right there, we are all the way open, and I can hear the boiler starting to do some stuff here. Let's make sure that it fires up. If you look at the lights on the front of the boiler, you'll actually see that it's getting ready to fire up. And there we go, the boiler just fired up. So now, up here at the zone valve, we have a full call for heat with the thermostat, and we're making that end switch, so we're turning the boiler on. So the zone valve is now operating the way that it's supposed to. I'm going to go ahead and take the original cover, just because they have them labeled, and we're going to put it back onto the new zone valve power head. And there we go. That job is now complete. Well, there you go, guys. We got that zone valve changed out. Everything's working the way that it's supposed to. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel. It does help us grow. Have a great day, and remember, you got this. We'll see you on the next one.